Last month, I was invited to speak at an event for business owners to help them grow their business. The recording you're about to watch is the presentation I gave at that event. If you're a business owner looking to unlock the next level of growth for your business, I hope this will be a useful resource for you.
Thank you so much for coming for unlocking your business potential with the Connor Marriott. Connor is a very close friend of mine and he helped me blow my business up. He's the person, if ever I get completely struggle or stuck with anything, I'm like, Connor, please help me. I am stressed about things. And he looks at all my problems and all things and he goes, well, this thing that's really simple and easy to do, if you do this, you will win. And I do it and I win. Like, yes, this is the best. So he is the owner of Instinct Education, which is an education company teaching people how to grow their businesses. They help business owners grow. They've got software, they've got crazy masterminds, they got all this stuff happening to like help business owners absolutely kick ass. So I'm super excited that Connor's come down to give time out of his day today to come and present for us. The way he's going to be doing this presentation is a little bit of question and half presentation. So I would love for everyone in here to ask any questions. There's no hiding, no silly questions, like come straight in. He said before this, he was like, Corey, if I'm talking for ages and no one interrupts me, please interrupt me and ask me a question. So I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm super excited to be here. I'm going to be taking notes myself, like on my phone. I'm really excited and I'll hand it all over to Connor.
Sweet. Thanks for the intro. Hey, everyone. So I guess like Corey said, the way I like to think about business is like make it simple. And so what I've done is put together an overview to give you hopefully a simpler way of looking at business and like how to grow, the frameworks for that. And then at certain points we can stop for questions, or at the end leave some time for more like specific cases based on where you're at. So I'll show my screen. Yep. Sweet. So basically going to cover number one, 3 foundational constraints, and then 3 growth multipliers, and then the 2 levels of growth. So when we look at growth, the simplest way to think about it is actually not how to grow. It's how do we systematically remove the constraints that inhibit growth. So the question of like, how do I grow is actually the incorrect question. We want to be asking, how do I remove the things that are preventing growth? So if we start off with the 3 foundational constraints, these are things that aren't necessarily business related, but if you're missing these things, you'll be wondering why your business isn't growing. These are like the hidden things that most people don't think about, but they're the things that make everything else pretty much impossible. So the first is going to be direction, which is basically, what am I aiming for? What is my goal? That should be the first thing everyone knows, because like it's really hard to make a strategy or a map if you don't know the destination. So if you think of where you are right now and you in the future, where you're going, that might be your goal. But it's not just one goal or one future. There's different potential futures. And so it's basically a choice of like, where am I going? And then that would determine your options in terms of what could my goals be. And all of these goals require different paths, obviously. And so this is why it's really important to have focus. To achieve this or this or this, they're different trajectories. So you can't do all at once because like you're going in different directions. And so you basically want to pick one. And most people will typically choose this one, which would be the smaller one, because it might seem easier or faster or a lower likelihood of failure. But the problem with that thinking is basically that solving any problem is difficult, achieving any goal is hard, and making any decision requires thought. So there's no easy option. There's no simple option. There's no fast option. Everyone's problems are at different scales, but they're subjectively equally as difficult to overcome. Someone who's like a billionaire versus someone who's homeless, in their reality, their problems are equal. Objectively, we could look at, okay, one's got bigger problems than the other, but for the individual, they all feel the same. Every problem is challenging. Every decision they're making is requiring bandwidth, and moving out of their situation is hard. And so ultimately, every outcome or every goal is equally challenging. And so what goal should you pick? Well, if we add another axis here, which would be growth, meaning your growth as an individual. Corey talks a lot about like self-development. This is more in regards to that. To achieve any of these goals requires growth. So if you were like at the level of internal growth required to achieve the goal, you would be there. Therefore, it wouldn't be your goal. It would be your present. So to achieve anything, you need to grow. And so depending on your goal is going to depend on the path you take, which will ultimately determine your growth. And so 12 months from now, the version of you that's aiming for this goal versus the version of you that's aiming for goal number 2 or 3 is significantly greater in terms of growth. And so by aiming for the highest goal you can, knowing that all goals are equally as hard, equally as challenging, all problems are equally as difficult, what you get is an increased growth. And so even if the goal you're aiming for, which is hopefully the biggest, is not what you end up doing forever, you're still creating the best version of you that you can in the future, the more capable version, because of that higher goal. And you're better off failing in the pursuit of a larger goal than succeeding in achieving a smaller goal, because here, if you come up short, you've still grown significantly more. You're a better you than if you're aiming here and actually hit it. And so that's foundational constraint number 1, direction. Ultimately, we want big goals, clear goals, single goals, so we can be focused, and so that whether or not we achieve them, we still are cultivating our greatest self. So next up, we have belief. And this is a pretty important one. We recently did a mastermind with our mastermind, which are our highest level clients. And this, I think, was the thing that hit the most, or like created the most change. So if your business isn't growing, the number 1 reason is that you're not taking the right actions. You're not doing the right things. Now, that can come from 2 things. It can come from either not knowing what the right actions are, or knowing the right actions, yet choosing not to take them. And this is, like, accepting this is quite a blow to your ego. And so it's the hard option to look at, but this is typically true. We have a lot of newer business owners that come in and they're like, I just can't get clients. But if your life depended on it and you needed to get 10 clients, like you could probably think of 20 ways to do that. You could call everyone you know, you could go door to door, you could do cold calls, you could hand out flyers on the side of the street. Like, most people know what to do. It's a bit like weight loss. Most people know how to get in shape. Just eat less and exercise more, fundamentally. But they're choosing not to do that. And so often it's not that we don't know what to do. It's that we do, but we don't do it. So why? You've probably seen something like this before. It's basically that, like, your beliefs determine your actions, and your actions determine your results. And so if we want new results, we first need to take new actions. But to do that, we can't have the same beliefs, because the actions we're taking are determined by the beliefs we've got. I'm sorry, I'm in a high-rise apartment here in an Airbnb, so if there's cars that are loud, I apologize. So beliefs are basically like, we have different beliefs about different things. We have lots of different beliefs, and the aggregate of our beliefs form our identity, who we are, who we identify as. If we want to take an action, let's say it was start a business, we first need to see, do I have a belief that I can do that? Does that belief exist? And if it does, we can take the actions. Let's say we had a different action, which was make $1 million. If you don't have a belief that matches that, then you won't take the action because you don't believe it's possible. So why would you do it? And so in order to take the actions required to achieve the goal, in this example, make $1 million, we first need to create the belief. And now we can align the action because it's in line with our identity because we believe it. Without that, we won't do it. We can know what to do theoretically, but in practice, we won't do anything. So this is like a simple way to do this. And this is probably something that you want to like spend more time on than me just going through it now. But this is the best framework of installing belief that I can think of. And it's basically, if you've got your goal, which we covered, do you believe that you have the ability to consistently improve? Just in any area. Like, do you believe you can improve? With enough effort or practice, can you improve? If you answered that affirmative, then the next question is, do you believe given enough improvement, you would be capable of achieving a goal? Meaning whatever that goal is, if you improved enough, because right now you can't achieve the goal, because if you could do it now, you would be at the goal. But is there a future version of you with enough improvement that is capable of doing X, your goal? And if you believe you can consistently improve, then the only variable there is just time. If I can consistently improve over a long enough time frame, eventually I'll be good enough to do what I want to do. And then number 3 is, even if it took 20 years to achieve, will it be worth it? And so this is this questioning is important because most people set goals not because they actually want the process or the pursuit of the goal. They just want the outcome. And most of those goals you won't achieve. And so unless your goal is so important to you that it's worth the pursuit more than, well, not more than, but equally to the outcome, then you shouldn't start it. And so this is where you can like reassign your goals. So it's like, what's the biggest outcome I can think of, which was the first point. And then, do I believe I can consistently improve towards that? And then even if it took 20 years or 50 years, like extend the time frame 5 times more than what it practically could take. So let's say if it was a 1-year goal, even if it took 5 years to achieve it, would it still be worth it? Will I still want it? And it's not that we want to like delay achieving the goal, but if it's not worth the additional time and effort and sacrifice to get it, then it's probably not the best goal to aim for to begin with. And so by doing this, we can basically logically get to the point that I believe it is possible to achieve the goal. Therefore, I have the belief. Therefore, I can take the actions that align with it to get there. And so that's belief. Number 2. Any questions? So lastly, effort. And this is more for earlier business owners, I'd say, when you're just getting started. And so in business, you've got your strategy or strategies, which is essentially what you're doing. But then you've got effort, which is how you're doing. I'd say Corey is probably one of the best examples of extreme effort from everyone I know. So
thanks, man.
Good example there. And so the difference between these two things is like, you could have the perfect strategy. Let's say it's rated 1,000 as an arbitrary value. If your effort is 0, it's a multiple. So the net outcome is still 0. It's nothing. So even with the best strategy, without the effort, it achieves nothing. On the other hand, you could have a significantly less effective strategy. Let's say it was 10. If you have 100 effort, you still get 1,000. And a good way to think of this would be like shooting a bow, an arrow at a target. If the strategy is your accuracy, the effort is how often you shoot. And so if you had a 1% accuracy rate, if you're shooting once a week, it's going to be 1 every 2 years that you'll hit it. If you're shooting 100 times an hour, you'll be hitting it every hour. And so same strategy, same accuracy, huge difference in outcome. And if you put that to an 80% accuracy, you're still shooting 1 time a week. You're only hitting it 1 every 2 or 3 months. Or sorry, 2 or 3 times per month. Versus 100 times an hour, it's 80 per hour. And so the reason this is important and the reason this is essential before looking at the strategy is because let's say you're testing different strategies, meaning the ways in which you would grow your business, the methods you use. if you're shooting 1 time a week and you've got a strategy, and let's say you don't know the effectiveness of this strategy yet, if you were shooting for a week and it was 1% accuracy, you'd say, I tried that for a week and it didn't work. If you then move to a different strategy, and let's say this was significantly better, 30% accuracy, if you're shooting 1 time a week, you're still going to say, I tried it for a week and it didn't work. And you might go to a different strategy. And again, it didn't work. And you basically just think nothing works. Not because nothing works, but because you don't. And so if we were to compare that to shooting 100 times a day, 1% accuracy, you'd get to the point where you say, well, I tried it for a month and I got 20. And then you go to a different strategy. I tried it for a month and I got 400. This one is actually better. I can objectively look at that because I have enough data to measure it. And then you find another strategy and this one got you 1,000. This one's the best. And so you can only make these decisions as to what you should be doing in terms of the strategy or the method if you first have the effort. And so step 1, max out effort before worrying about strategy. And then you can start to look at improving the strategy, because it's impossible to improve a strategy or even measure its effectiveness to begin with without the effort. And when it comes to strategies, like anything can work or everything can work. It's just to what degree. But we can only get to that point if we first have the effort. And so some examples of this, let's say you're every 2 months trying a new thing. Oh, sorry, let's say for 2 months, you were trying a new thing every month. That means you would try 2 things after 2 months. If you're trying a new thing every week, you try 8 things in 2 months. If you're trying a new thing every day, you try 60 things, which is 30 times more, which is essentially 3 years of growth you've achieved compared to the person that's doing it once a month. So in 2 months, you get 3 years of growth and results versus someone who's doing it once a month. And most people do things significantly less than once a month. So you have a huge advantage. This is how people like grow businesses fast, because of this. And then when you factor in like the learning curve and the improvement from that, that's how you get the exponential growth.
That is crazy. We also have a question just quickly. So how do you know, based on time, how long to try a strategy before pivoting and trying a different strategy?
I would say until first of all, until it works, because everything can work. Until it's worked consistently enough, like long enough, that you actually know exactly what it looks like. So if you try something and it doesn't work, and this will we'll go through this in a bit, but it's like nothing doesn't work. Posting on social media can work. Doing cold calls can work. Going door to door can work. Like billboard ads can work. It's just to what degree does it work? And so if you're going to start a strategy, don't start it thinking, let me see if this works. Think, I'm going to commit to it until it works. And then based on that, I'll decide if it's worth continuing. And like, that's a bigger commitment to start with, the until it works. But if you're not prepared to do it until it works, then it's probably not something you should start to begin with.
Unreal. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, an example of this was when I first started business, the first business I had, I grew to 10,000 a month in 5 months, which was massive for me at the time. And like, it was because for the first 3 months, I did 90 meetings and every single meeting said no. And I was going door to door at the time. So I'd go door to door. I booked 90 meetings with business owners. I got no 90 times. But that effort allowed me to learn what would work. And then I grew quite quickly after that. But again, if we consider most people would try one thing every month, well, I did 90 in 3 months, so 30 a month. That's like several years, actually, nearly a decade of growth I got compared to other people who are doing one thing a month. So it's like you can supercharge your progress in a short period of time with effort. And it's like, if you think I need to do that anyway, like I need to do 90 meetings eventually, well, you could do that over 5 years, or you could do that over 3 months. You can maybe do it in 1 month. So it's not that you're avoiding the effort, it's just you're avoiding the time. Another example was I met this person once and I was doing cold calls after. And they were saying, oh, I can't, like cold calls don't work. I don't try cold calls. I've done them and they didn't work. And they were doing 10 cold calls a week. And I was doing cold calls at the time. I was like, no, great. I was doing 100 a day. And so same strategy, different effort, different outcome. Most people's view of what is adequate effort is very, very short of what it should be. So they're the 3 foundational constraints, which, yeah, important to make sure they're in place because nothing else will really work without that. Any questions? Yeah, reps. Corey, exactly. What sales calls did you do when you were selling, Corey?
For me, when I was doing sales calls, well, that ones that I was booking in, so it wasn't so much the sales calls that I was having, but I was probably sending 50 to 100 messages a day. Like every day. Like I didn't have a day off.
Yeah.
Just sending 50 to 100 messages, and then I'd get like 10 to, because I didn't do any cold calls, but I get to like, probably think 20.
No, not cold calls, sales calls I meant, but.
Yeah, sales calls, yeah. Probably the most in a week is probably like 15 to 20. So, and that was from hardcore messaging. Like I'd wake up and I'd be messaging throughout the whole day. I was messaging before I go to sleep. I was messaging. I'd like wake up to my alarm. I'd start messaging straight away. So yeah, it was like 50 to 100 messages like every single day, and I didn't have a day off until we started hitting like 30K months.
Yeah, so I can tell you because we track all our clients' data and what they do. You in one day did more than what most people do in the entire month, and that's why you grew the 50K in like a month or 2.
Yeah, when I first did it,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So that's effort, direction, and belief.
Got a question? Yeah. So say Jordan here, he does like solar, right? And he is got this kind of like mentality in mind and is like, this is hypothetical. So he's already doing this, he's trying to do it like X amount of times a day for a month. And then he jumps on a masterclass with Marriott, and Connor comes in and brings like a golden gem, like a little bit of wisdom and advice that could change something or could alter like that, his current mentality of that. Does he implement that, or does he wait until the allocated time for results is over to then refine it and then add that little gold nugget into the next?
Good question. So refining a strategy is different to changing a strategy. Okay. And I've got some slides on this, but you should always aim to refine the strategy. So at any moment, like, and as you're doing that, as I was doing those 90 meetings, with every meeting I was learning, I was refining, I was getting better. So it's like you do change the approach to the strategy or the efficiency of the strategy, but until you've like hit the capacity of the strategy, you shouldn't necessarily change, unless like if someone's putting in the like these like the foundational requirements. So like if someone's here and they've been here for a while and they have these things in place, and then it's just still not working as effectively as you'd like, that's when you might decide, okay, I could be doing something better here. But yeah, I'll cover this in a bit, but it's a good question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oops. Sweet. So that was the 3 foundational constraints. Next, the 3 growth multipliers. So, like I said, I like to make business simple. So there's a little like diagram here. You've got your business. Underneath that, you've got your product, which is essentially like what you do. You might have different products, but this will be just for one. Underneath that, you can break it into 2 areas: acquisition and delivery. Acquisition would be everything you do to get customers or clients, sales, which would be marketing, lead generation, lead nurture, sales. And then delivery is everything you do after the sale to fulfill on that, to get the results, to keep the client, increase lifetime value, everything with that. So acquisition, we have lead generation, lead nurture, and sales. And then underneath that, we have things like for lead generation, we've got like ads, funnels, websites, branding, emails, content for lead nurture, price, scripts, objections for sales, right? This is how most people look at it, but it's wrong because we're missing one thing or one layer, and it's before lead generation, lead nurture, and that's messaging, offer, and fulfillment. And so these three areas, messaging, offer, and fulfillment, sit above these other aspects. And the best way to think about this is like a book. So imagine your business is a book. A book has a front cover, it has the pages or the contents, and then it's got the blurb on the back. And so your product's essentially the outcome. Like, what do you get? If it's weight loss, maybe it's lose 5 kilos. The blurb is the offer. The offer is different to what you do. If you go to buy a book, you're in a bookshop, you don't start reading the pages to learn what it's about, you read the blurb. If someone asks you what you do or how you can help them, you don't tell them what you do, you don't read the pages, you read the blurb, which is the offer. And so that's basically what you do. The pages is then the process, which is how you do it. So they're different things. And then the outcome is what happens once it's done. The front cover is then the messaging. And this is how people pick it off the shelf. So you could have the best contents, pages, process in the world, but if no one's picking up the book, no one's reading it. And if the blurb sucks, still no one's reading it. So we want to consider all these things. The messaging will determine your marketing. The blurb will determine your sales, and the pages, fulfillment, will determine results, success, testimonials, case studies, repeat customers, and so on. An example here would be if the outcome was weight loss, lose 5 kilos. The pages might be, I give you a diet plan and a workout program, right? That's what I do. The blurb are the steps. We cover nutrition and exercise. So when someone asks, like, how do we do that? I don't say diet plan and workout program. I say, I'll show you how to master your nutrition, and I'll show you how to consistently exercise. The way I do that is with diet plan and workout program. And then the front cover is the messaging, meaning like, who is this for? And so it might be overweight, self-conscious men, as an example. So messaging, offer, fulfillment. Messaging will determine marketing, which is lead generation and lead nurture, how we get leads, how one leads up. Offer will determine sales and price point, how many of those leads we convert into customers and at what price. And fulfillment will determine results and retention. That sits above things like ads, funnels, websites, content, emails, branding, all these other things. And so this layer determines this, which then determines this. And so if this is bad or average or non-existent, this is going to reflect that. If this is great, so is this. And so if your ads aren't working, your content isn't working, emails aren't working, your call conversion rate's low, you have no referrals or case studies or no like profit, think of this layer, the red, as a derivative of this layer, which is a derivative of this layer. Meaning if this was, let's say we assign this value of 100, this will be a percent of 100. It can't exceed 100. This might be 80% of this. And then these will sequentially be a derivative of that. So maybe 80% of that. And so if you had perfect ads, let's say, that would be 100% of what? This. Which would be, if that was perfect, 100% of this. And so if this is a 5, the best ads in the world you're going to ever write are going to be a 5. And so if you focus up here, the better the messaging offer and fulfillment, by making that better, by default, everything else gets better with it. So one move, you can improve everything. The problem is that most people focus here. They're like, how do I grow my business? Maybe I need new ads. Maybe I need to send more emails. My funnel sucks. Let me build a new one. Maybe I need to update my website. Maybe I need more content. Maybe I need better branding. And then nothing's working. It's because they're not moving the layer above. So if we focus here, everything gets better. A question. Oh, an emoji. I'll give you a more practical example of this for messaging. So messaging is lead generation. Lead generation is basically how you get people interested. Marketing. Fundamentally, marketing is we have a message, what we're saying, and we have a market, who we're saying it to. We have a method on how we deliver that. And that could be ads, content, blog articles, videos, or a whole number of other things. And so the message, well, the method delivers the message to the market. It's the bridge. It's the thing that comes between it. So it could be paid advertising or organic or influence marketing. The method's what you pay for with time or money. The messaging determines the results you get based on the market. And so let's say you're running ads. The ad is reflecting the message, what you're saying. The method is ad, go into the market. For ads, you pay per views, impressions. And so an average CPM, cost per impression, is $30 for 1,000 impressions, meaning you pay $30 to get in front of 1,000 people, right? That's the method. That's pretty consistent across different markets, depending on the platforms. And so that's not the thing that gets the result, because no matter what, that's what you'll be paying, give or take. The message is going to determine of those 1,000 people, how many click. And so if you have bad messaging, from those 1,000 people that see your ad, 1 might click, which basically means you're paying $30 per click. If you had average messaging, you might get 5 clicks. So now you're paying $6 per click instead of 30. Good messaging, you might get 30 clicks, which would be $1 per click. What you're actually paying for is the impressions. That doesn't change. The change in the result is determined on the message, meaning of those 1,000 people that see that, how many respond, which is based on the message. Content would be the same if you did 5 posts that got 1,000 views. It's basically the same. Instead of paying $30, you might spend 30 minutes. Bad messaging, 1 person responds. Average, 5, good, 30. So it's the same whether it's paid or organic, posting content or running ads. People are seeing it, you're paying for that with time or money. That's the method, it's pretty standard. The result comes entirely from the messaging. And so different platforms and strategies may give lower costs in terms of how many people see it, or allow you to reach different segments of the market. But people will only respond if the message is good. An example for the offer, if we go back to the weight loss example, offer affects sales. And so you might help people with nutrition, exercise, and habits. Your offer might be, I'll show you how to write a diet plan. I'll tell you what exercises are good, and I'll tell you what habits to start. A better offer might be, I'll write your diet plan for you. I'll write your workout program for you, and I'll give you a habit tracker. An even better example might be, I'll set up meal delivery straight to your house. I'll give you daily personal training, and I'll give you one-on-one daily accountability. That's a different offer, which means now if I go to sell someone, doesn't matter how good at sales I am, if I'm selling this versus this, I'm always going to close more people. Or sorry, if I'm selling this, I'm going to close less. So it's like the offers determining the sales, the call conversion, and also what we can charge. We charge significantly more for this than we can for this. So by changing the offer, we affect all these things without having to learn sales, without having to learn objections, without having to, do all these other things. We instantly improve those things with one change. So there are 3 growth multipliers: messaging, offer, and fulfillment. I didn't go into fulfillment because it's quite variable depending on your business type. Any questions?
Before anyone asks, I just want to say that what you just said in like that whole thing is so valuable. For everyone listening, everything that Connor just went through then, so valuable.
Yeah. Cool. And then lastly, we have the 2 levers of growth. Oops. So like at the start, business growth is basically the process of systematically removing the constraints that inhibit growth. So if we think of your business as a pipe of water, you have constraints at these different levels. And so if we will go back to like lead generation, lead nurture, sales, fulfillment, retention, there's constraints. And that's going to affect the flow of water. The flow of water would be ultimately the success of the business or the cash flow. If we remove the constraint, the water flows. And then we find the next one, we remove it. So we're not trying to grow, we're trying to inhibit the things or remove the things that inhibit growth. And so the first lever is filling the pipe, which we do by removing the constraints. At some point, we reach the capacity of that strategy, going back to that question. And now we can look at getting a bigger pipe or changing the strategy or the system or the method or the model. So the two levers, number one, business capacity, which is the size of the pipe. And number two, business efficiency, which is basically the proximity to that capacity. And so let's say in this example, the capacity of a business, let's say your business, is 75,000 a month. Right now, it might be at 20,000 a month. And so the difference between the efficiency and the capacity, in this example, it wouldn't make sense to try to change the strategy or increase the capacity. We instead want to increase the efficiency, meaning the flow of water, because we already have the capacity. That's not the constraint. The constraint is not reaching it. And so we first want to increase the efficiency towards the capacity, basically max out the pipe, and then change the model or the method to create a big pipe. And so the question or the line of thinking is basically, what is the capacity of my business in its current form? And that can be for all areas. So for lead generation, let's say, how many leads could I generate each day with the current method I'm using? How many bookings or meetings if I'm doing cold calls, let's say? What would the perfect system be? If I could do 100 calls a day, what's a realistic outcome? Maybe 10% booking. So I could book 10. Where am I? Let's say 2. Okay, there's still more efficiency in this system. So I don't yet need to change the system. I need to increase efficiency. For like delivery, what's your capacity with delivery? If you're doing one-on-one work, maybe you can only take on 20 clients a month because of the time constraints. And so if you're at 5 clients and you could have 20, there's no need to worry about, oh, maybe I should change the model. It's let's get there first, increase the efficiency, and then do that. And so we don't want to solve problems we don't yet have, which is a trap a lot of business owners fall into. They're like, oh, well, my business currently, I couldn't even get to $1 million a month. It's like, well, you're at $5,000 a month. Why don't you try to get to 10 first? Focus on where you're at and then change the model or method. Does that make sense? I'll give you an example of this. So here, if you, let's say this is your business, your capacity, you went through those questions. What's the capacity? How close am I to it? Let's say you figured out the capacity was 10,000 a month and you're currently at 2,000 a month. Should you increase the capacity or increase the efficiency? You should increase the efficiency. So how to do that? This is an example of the system. So your system might be different, the methods might be different, but basically we generate leads, we nurture leads, we then make sales, and that's for a certain price. As we know, messaging will determine lead generation, lead nurture. Your offer, the better that is, the better your sales and price. So let's say we're running ads, we spend $1,000 on ads, and we've got $20 cost per lead, which would be lead generation. Lead to call was 10%, call conversion was 20%, and price point was $1,000. In this example, we would generate 50 leads, have 5 calls, make 1 sale, and turn over $1,000. Because we spent $1,000, the profit is 0 and the ROI is 0. So we could say, well, this isn't working, but it can work if we improve those higher level areas. And so let's say we did that and we improved the messaging. that might take our cost per lead down to $10 and increase our lead to call conversion to 20%. So now for that same $1,000, we make 5 sales instead of 1, and we make $5,000, which is 4,000 profit, 4 times ROI. If we then look over here, improve the offer, maybe we increase the call conversion to 40%, and now we can also increase our price point to $3,000. So now for that same $1,000, we now make $24,000 in revenue, or 23 times ROI. And then we can go one step further and improve all those areas again, get our cost per lead down to $5, lead to call 30%, call conversion 50%, and increase the price to $5,000. Now we make $150,000, or 149 times ROI. And so the difference between making $0 and $150,000 wasn't changing the system, wasn't changing the strategy, wasn't changing the spend. It was increasing the efficiency of the system we already had. And there's a huge impact from that. And again, messaging and offer. So let's say you did that, you grew here. Now you've kind of maxed out the system. That's when you'd say, okay, now I should increase the capacity. And that's basically growth. Each level, the system you've got, the strategy you've got, the model you've got has capacity. You shouldn't look at changing it until you've reached it or close. Change, improve, efficiency, capacity, efficiency, capacity. And so that's basically business.